Good morning, everyone. I'm Miha Gallagher, Senior Research Director for Destination Analysts, and it is the last week of April. Yes, you heard that right. We're all about 1 month out from the official start of the summer season. And a trip down memory lane yesterday reminded me that 2019 was the year of the hot girl summer. And for those of you who don't know what that is, don't worry, I Googled it because I also didn't know exactly what that meant, but essentially it stood for feeling confident in who you are, having fun, and looking good while doing it. We all know 2020 was a lost summer, so let me officially welcome you to Shot Girl Summer 2021, brought to you by Pfizer. For our webinar regulars, it's always so good to see you online with us again. And for our newcomers, hello and welcome. We at Destination Analysts are a team of market researchers serving the global travel and hospitality industry with deep insights into audiences, brand, and marketing performance. Joining me from our team today are Erin Francis Cummings, our President and CEO, and our Founder and Managing Director, Dave Bratton. Erin and Dave want to hear about your Shot Girl Summer plans, but also about your research questions. So feel free to use the Q&A feature or the chat function to talk to them. And the findings I'll be presenting today is based on a weekly online survey of 1,200 Americans who traveled pre-pandemic from each of the 4 major regions of the US. New travelers are surveyed each week, and this week actually marks the 59th consecutive week of this study. After the data is collected each week, it's weighted by geography and demographics so that it reflects the actual American traveling population. And today's update reflects data that we collected just this past weekend between April 23rd through the 25th. And as a reminder, this is independently produced research that we provide to help the industry continue to navigate and recover from this ongoing crisis. And on the agenda for today, I'll share the latest on American travel sentiment and behaviors, and then Erin will come on to moderate a timely discussion and conversation with vaccinated travelers. Don't miss the opportunity to hear directly from them about how they're feeling about travel right now, what they have planned ahead for this summer season, and also hear about the marketing and messaging that will most resonate with them. Charlie, Eric, Julie, Marcia, and Serna, we are so excited to have you all on with us today, and we're excited to learn from you later on in the show. And before I jump into the research findings, I'll start with some context, a summary of the top headlines that Americans saw as they answered our questions this week. So the US has recorded a whopping 32.8 million confirmed cases of COVID to date, with nearly 586,000 deaths. But active cases in the States have slowly started to decline after increasing over the last several weeks. And it's actually been months since the first person received a COVID-19 vaccine, and hundreds of millions of doses have been distributed, but the distribution of vaccines has not been equal throughout the world. In fact, richer countries are securing more doses than their populations actually need, while many poorer countries are yet to report a single dose administered. And models suggest that even if high-income countries are fully vaccinated by the middle of this year, but developing countries only manage to vaccinate only half of their populations, the global economy could still stand to lose around $4 trillion. And the US is among the top nations vaccinating their citizens at an unbelievable pace, nearing the 200 millionth vaccine administered. However, the pace of vaccination has slowed in this country in recent days. And even though half of US adults are still completely unvaccinated, dwindling demand for coronavirus shots was reported by some hospitals in Alabama and Missouri. And this is paired with a notable vaccine hesitancy that we're still experiencing in this country, with 4 in 10 Americans saying they maybe or outright will not get vaccinated. And this article points out that more than 5 million people who received their first shot of the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine have actually missed their second dose. And the reasons vary for why people are missing their second shots. But in interviews, some said that they feared the side effects and so didn't want to get the second dose, while others are saying they felt sufficiently protected by the first shot. But mounting evidence shows that compared with the two-dose regimen, a single shot triggers a weaker immune response and leaves recipients more susceptible to dangerous virus variants. And in unofficial news, this Twitter user suggested there be a special stimulus check for those who made it through quarantine without a dog, 2 monitors, or a Peloton. And sadly, I would not qualify for such a stimulus because I got all of the above during the pandemic. But what about you? I want to hear how many of you have made it through without acquiring what future generations will refer to as the quarantine starter pack. We'll give you a few moments to answer. I know Erin and I both would not qualify for this. I think Dave on our team may be the only person in Destination Analyst that qualifies for this special stimulus. All right, so the poll is in, and 55% of you, over half of our audience, said that yes, they would qualify for this stimulus because they have no new dog, 1 monitor, they're living the 1 monitor life, and they say, who needs a Peloton when you can walk outside for free? Fair enough. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the key takeaways from this week's study of American travelers. So 1, while this week saw minor retreats in travel sentiment, the overall trends noted in this study are extremely positive. 2, current booking and planning behaviors suggest that younger travelers may be the first to get out and fully re-embrace travel this summer. 3, travelers are generally bullish about summer, yet interest in discounts and deals is high. Younger, urban, and more frequent travelers may be expecting low summer travel prices. 4, travelers will be looking for fun, memorable, and relaxing vacations this year, and concerns about crowding have diminished significantly over the course of the pandemic. 5, digital content on websites, Facebook, email, and printed assets like visitor guides and travel magazines will be the best places to reach Americans with travel messaging right now. So let's start with takeaway 1, which shows that despite minor retreats in travel sentiment, overall feelings towards travel are on an extremely positive trend. So our concerns about personally contracting the virus inched down this week. Right now it sits at 57.3%, down from 58.1% last week. And that is still elevated, but when we look at the historical data for our personal health concerns, the percent who are concerned, shown here by the orange line, this is bounced around in more recent weeks, but overall this has trended downward since the start of the year. And we see a similar story when we examine concerns about our loved ones contracting the virus, which has dipped 6 percentage points this week over last. And again, we can see that this concern, denoted by the orange line, has been on the decline since the start of the year. Strangely, though, when we asked how they feel the severity of the coronavirus situation will change in the US in the next month, the proportion of Americans who feel it will get worse inched down, but so too did the proportion who feels it will get better. And in the time series chart for this data point, those who felt things would get better, denoted by this blue line, it had been on a steep rise since January, but since March, this optimism has waned. Meanwhile, those who are more pessimistic about the coronavirus situation has inched upwards after reaching pandemic-era lows in previous weeks. Also down a bit this week is our excitement to travel in the near term. Still, though, almost 2/3 of travelers say they would be excited about taking a trip in the next month that they had not yet considered. And despite the small backslide on this metric this week, Americans' excitement to travel in the near term has been on a sustained upwards trend. And similarly, Americans' openness to travel inspiration ticked down slightly this week, but still, nearly 63% of us are excited to learn about new travel experiences and places to visit. As was the case with excitement to travel now, openness to travel messaging and inspiration has been on the rise overall since the end of last year. And Americans' perceptions of travel activities as unsafe dropped again this week to another coronavirus era low. This chart is showing you the percent of travelers who feel that each of these leisure activities are unsafe to engage in the current environment, with the perceived safer activities shown towards the bottom of this chart. Now, when I take the average unsafety rating across all of the 24 plus activities that we track, the mean score is now just at 35.1%. But let's see how this is tracked over the course of the pandemic. So this 35.1%, as I mentioned earlier, is another pandemic record low, and this is down from 57.8% in January and way down from 69.4% 1 year ago. And as of now, 4 in 10 Americans are firmly confident that they can travel safely in the current environment. And although this is down 2 percentage points from last week, overall, this has been on an upwards trend since the end of March. And now 7 in 10 Americans are in a ready to travel state of mind, a figure that's been largely on the up and up since January. And lastly, over 43% now say that they would not feel guilty traveling right now, which is another pandemic record. All right, let's move on to our second key takeaway, which shows that younger travelers may be the first to get out and fully re-embrace travel this summer. And this is supported by current booking and planning behaviors observed. And let me show you what I mean by that. So in the last week, over 75% of Americans have actively dreamt and or planned travel, including nearly 18% who made a booking or reservation for an upcoming trip. And let's now do a deeper dive into these travel planning and booking behaviors by age. So when we look at those who daydreamt about taking a leisure trip in the past week, younger travelers, particularly millennials, were more likely to do so than older travelers. However, talking to friends or loved ones about a future trip was more common amongst boomers. But researching travel ideas online in the past week was dominated by younger travelers. And interestingly, so too was researching travel ideas offline. Millennials were also almost twice as likely as boomers to have made actual travel bookings in the past week, while travelers who say they have done no such travel, dreaming, planning, or booking in the past week, they were 3 times as likely to be boomers as opposed to millennials. Now, when we asked about the number of expected summer leisure trips, 71.6% of Americans say they will take a summer vacation or a getaway. And this is up nearly 10 percentage points from last month and up nearly 36 percentage points from 2020. And when we look at the mean number of trips Americans plan to take by generation, millennials plan to travel more this summer compared to their older counterparts. Still, though, the pandemic lingers in Americans' mindset. While 43.6% say the number of summer trips they're going to take this year is what they would do in a normal year, and over a quarter say it's going to be even more, nearly 1 in 3 American travelers say that their summer trip volume will be less this year compared to a typical pre-pandemic year for them. But looking by generation at those who say their summer 21 trip volume will be more than a typical non-pandemic year, we actually see that this is led by younger travelers, particularly millennials. All right, so on to this week's third key takeaway. Travelers are generally bullish about summer travel, yet interest in discounts and deals is high. Younger, urban, more frequent travelers may be entering the summer travel planning season expecting low prices. So, of the 71.6% of American travelers who expect to expect to take a summer leisure trip, which again is up nearly 10 percentage points when we last asked this question back in March. Right now, just over a third say that their first summer trip is well developed, suggesting there is still opportunity for travel brands to influence trips for the remaining 63.6% whose trip is not yet well developed. And when we compare how well developed their first summer leisure trip is to when we last asked this question at the end of March, the results are relatively similar. Although slightly more now are saying that their trip is somewhat developed, 40% now say that they have a sense of where and when they will travel, compared to 35.6% on March 28th. And for these summer trips, travelers have most commonly booked a hotel or purchased airfare. In total, though, 43.9% have made a reservation for their upcoming trip. However, over half, 56.1%, report that they've not yet made any travel reservations, again, highlighting an opportunity for travel brands to affect these travel decisions and reservations. And July continues to be the peak month for these summer leisure trips, followed by August. And beaches remain the top destination for summer travel, followed by small towns. Although 27.3% also say they will be visiting a city or metropolitan area on their summer trip. And over 70% of summer travelers plan to head out of state, and 1 in 10 will travel abroad. And we then asked travelers which states they're likely to visit this summer, and sunny Florida and California topped the list of states that summer travelers expect to visit. And this is just the list of the top 35 or so. We did test each state, so if you're interested in the result, you can just shoot us a note and we'll share that information with you. All right, when it comes to activities as part of summer trips, dining in restaurants and beaches top the list. Although one thing to note is that expectations to dine in restaurants on these leisure trips is lower compared to pre-pandemic times, in which we would typically see about 70 to 80% of travelers dining out on their leisure trips. And about a third of summer travelers also expect to shop in stores, engage in outdoor recreational experiences, and about a quarter plan to visit historical sites and or theme parks this summer. And while car is still the predominant transportation method, 34.2%, so over a third of American travelers, will be getting on an airplane for their summer trip. And Americans are likely to travel with their significant other and children this summer. And discounts has been a hot topic of conversation recently, so we wanted to explore this a bit deeper in this week's survey. Right now, 2/3 of summer leisure travelers say they will actively look for discounts for their summer trips. And a slightly lower, but still significant 58.8% say that discounts and deals are important to their summer travel planning. Interestingly, though, Americans are split on their expectations for travel prices this season. While 36.3% agree prices will be low this summer, 30.6% disagree. So let's take a look at the 36.3% who expect that summer travel will be a buyer's market. Who are these people? Well, they're more likely to be younger travelers than older travelers, and regionally, American travelers who live in the Northeast, followed by the West, are more likely to agree that travel prices will be low this summer. Those who expect low travel prices skew male and also skew more affluent. And those who are business travelers or conventioneers, who tend to be more avid leisure travelers, they're more likely to say that summer travel prices will be low. And air and cruise travelers are also in the camp that expect low summer prices compared to non-air and non-cruise travelers. And those who travel with companions who have physical, mental, or emotional issues agree that travel prices will be low. And lastly, those who live in urban areas are nearly twice as likely as those who live in rural or suburban areas to expect that travel prices will be low this summer. And we asked all travelers why they're not planning more travel this summer, just to understand impediments. And the top two cited reasons were directly pandemic related. So safety concerns around COVID and the fact that the pandemic is not completely over were the top responses, followed by concerns about crowds or too many people traveling this summer. And actually, for the first two highlighted here, 46% of American travelers cited at least one of these pandemic-related reasons as an impediment for their summer travel. And over a third, 35.1%, gave reasons around health and safety protocols, such as vaccine or testing requirements being prohibitive, too restrictive safety protocols, and or protocols being perceived as too tedious. And 1 in 4 cited the expense of travel, either their personal financial concerns and or the fact that travel is just too expensive for them right now. And lastly, businesses not being fully open or destinations being close to tourism were also impediments to summer travel for 1 in 5 American travelers. And despite these deterrents, there is an uptick in business and group meetings travel for this summer. Compared to last month, more now say they'll be taking trips for business reasons in the summer of 21 or to attend conventions, conferences, or group meetings. All right, so this week's next key takeaway is that this year, travelers will seek trips that are fun, memorable, and relaxing. Over the course of the pandemic, concerns about crowding have significantly decreased. So we asked travelers to share about their passions and hobbies and to rate the level of interest in a wide range of different activities and hobbies. And this chart is showing you the percent who are extremely interested in each or they're passionate about each of these things. Topping the list here are international travel and food and cuisine. These are the most common passions amongst American travelers. These are followed by amusement parks, musical concerts, theater, fitness, and of course, wine. And we also asked them about what they most want to get out of travel in the coming year. And topping the list here are relaxing and experiencing beautiful places, followed by feeling free, visiting new places, and just seeing places that they've been dreaming of. And considering the places that they most want to visit in the next year, the destination attributes that Americans deem very important or essentially important are fun, memorable, and exciting, followed by affordable, sunny, and comforting. Down towards the bottom of this list is the desire to visit the familiar. And when we look at the absolute change in the importance of these attributes compared to June of 2020, the largest decrease was in the importance of being an uncrowded destination. Meanwhile, positive increases were seen in the importance of destinations that are cultured, luxurious, and transformative. And last but certainly not least, this week's 5th key takeaway, and that is digital content on websites, Facebook, email, and printed assets like visitor guides and travel magazines. These will be the best places to reach Americans with your travel messaging. So similar to when we posed this question to Americans in the past, we found that travelers report that they would be most receptive to learning about new destinations to visit through websites, Facebook, and email. 1 in 5 will also turn to printed resources such as official, local, or state visitor guides and travel or lifestyle magazines. And asked how often they use each of several different resources for travel planning, perhaps not surprisingly, online search is used most. However, in-person word of mouth and family and friends is also towards the top of the list here, but at a lower rate than we would typically see in a non-pandemic non-pandemic time. Unsurprising considering that the pandemic has halted all of our travels for the past year. But word of mouth will play second fiddle to online search. Other online resources typically used include review sites, OTAs, direct websites of businesses like hotels and airlines, and also online video. Also used in travel planning are official destination marketing organization resources, particularly the official tourism website and your printed visitor guides. And amidst all of these travel planning resources, this week we also asked about digital influencers. And we found that 1 in 5 American travelers have turned to a digital influencer for trip inspiration or planning in the past 2 years. And this 20.1% is largely comprised of younger travelers, particularly millennials, but also Gen X, less so for boomers. And when asked which of their travel decisions were affected by posts of digital influencers, decisions around restaurants, hotels, and tours were most common. And just over 1 in 5 of digital influencer users also said that the decision to visit a specific destination has also been impacted. And asked which types of destinations they were inspired to visit because of influencers, 1/3 cited beach destinations. Influencers, though, have also affected decisions to visit parks, including national, state, and regional parks. And those who follow influencers do so most often or most commonly on Facebook and Instagram, although 1/3 or more also follow digital influencers on TikTok and Twitter. And the most commonly cited reason that travelers follow these digital influencers is for trip ideas and inspiration, of course, although influencers' exploration of new places and just generally having similar interests to these travelers who follow them, these are also top reasons why influencers have gained their ear and their eye. All right, so here are the key takeaways. Again, just a summary of the top takeaways from this week's study of American travelers. So despite minor retreats in some travel sentiment metrics, overall, feelings about travel are on an extremely positive trend. Current booking and planning behaviors suggest that younger travelers may be the first to get out and fully re-embrace travel this summer. Travelers are generally bullish about summer, but interest in discounts and deals is still high, particularly amongst younger, urban dwelling and more frequent travelers. Travelers will be looking for fun, memorable, and relaxing vacations this year, and concerns about crowding have diminished. Good news for our big cities. And then finally, digital content on websites, Facebook, email, and printed assets like your visitor guides and travel magazines. That'll be the best place to put your travel messaging to influence and inspire American travelers to come to your destination. So that's a wrap on this week's research, and the presentation deck and webinar recording will be subsequently emailed out to you, but it will also be available on our website here. And these findings are only made possible by your support. So if you haven't already, I just ask that you consider subscribing or donating so we can keep these insights coming. And one last thought I want to leave you with is that Destination Analyst is here to help you with any research need. Just let us know if we can be of service to you. And I lied, I have one last thought to leave you with, and that is that I want you to schedule a demo with us of our Apollo service, which is our destination intelligence and management system that gets you more accurate and more predictive insights out of your geolocation data, as well as true executive level benchmarks of your destination and organizational performance. All right, so I will relinquish the stage. Erin, it is all yours.
Thank you. That was an awesome update. We've got lots of great questions. Panelists, welcome. Let's get your videos on if we can, and everyone can come off mute. Fantastic. I'll do a quick intro of everyone, starting with Charlie. Charlie, looks like you love the outdoors. Love seeing all these fantastic travel plans that you have coming up. Look at all that. Let's move on to Eric. Eric, looks like you're a 49ers fan. And Eric, you like cities. Looks like you have some cities coming up that you are going to visit. Glad you're on the panel. We definitely have a nightlife person here with you. All right. And Julie, how's Washington today, Julie?
Excellent.
Great. Looks like you've got a beach getaway coming up and you are heading to one of your favorite cities and also one of mine, New Orleans. Those beignets look fantastic. Marcia and her husband and puppies looks like loving their in-state Texas travel, but heading off to Maryland to reunite with your sister and looking like you look to head to your annual road trip in Breckenridge. Sounds like you missed that last year, but it's coming up. And then last but not least, Serna, thanks for being here. And you have two amazing trips coming up, another great city, Nashville, and then the country of Jamaica. Well, I'm so glad you all are on here. I'm going to switch the view here so I can see all of you. Okay, well, Miha shared some data about discounts, and our travel industry leaped on that because you can see there's a high demand for travel this summer, which we're all so thankful for on our side. But there's also a strong expectation on the consumer side for discounts. So if there's any light any of you can share on that, we're hoping to learn a little bit more. Julie, let me start with you. Are you expecting strong discounts this summer? And if they're not available, is that going to change anything for you?
I was not expecting discounts. I was assuming that everybody's going to be going out so that there's no need for discounts. What I was looking for were cancellation policies. Just in case COVID comes back, I'm making these plans and I want to make sure that if something happens, I'm not going to be out money.
Okay, I saw Serna, you nodding, Eric, you nodding. Show of hands is what Julie described close to how you feel?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree that I am looking at cancellation policies, but I expected to have some kind of discount. I feel like there's a general knowledge that a lot of people have been affected economically by the pandemic, and that there's like a variance in demand. So I expected things to be pretty cheap.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And Charlie, you're nodding on that. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I believe is kind of a rise, because this is a very new situation that we find ourselves in. So traditional ways of formulating supplies and demand is kind of in a weird place when people have earned a lot less over the last year and so many people have been displaced from jobs or trying to find new homes. It's a little bit difficult to jump in on travel plans where you don't know if your earnings are going to be the same. So I think even with stimulus and things, people want to travel. We all have a desire to, but we're trying to manage responsibility of like, can I actually afford going and doing this? Because we're also noticing a ton of inflation happening right now as well. You go out for a meal and all of a sudden it's 4 times what you thought it was going to be. And so when you're trying to travel accordingly, it's also difficult to manage that budget. So I think that's why we're seeing like, yeah, there's a ton of demand, but people are also very cost conscious right now because we've all taken a financial blow over the last year. So that's at least my thoughts on it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Charlie. Eric, I was curious, like if something isn't matching the price that you expect, or how is that for your upcoming travel? Is that going to deter you in any way, or can you share about how you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't expect it to be able to, like, if something isn't matching, I'm not looking for cheaper prices or discounts or anything like that. But I am looking for something that's a little bit more affordable than, say, traveling regularly over the summer. Not necessarily like majorly discounted, but I would expect to see prices you typically see in the springtime as opposed to the summer, with summer typically being the most expensive time to travel. That's a little bit more than what I'm expecting, as opposed to like, oh, discounts, and I don't expect it to deter me regardless. Those are plans that still need to happen.
Okay, Marcia, your thoughts?
I actually was expecting little bit deeper discounts than what I saw. I had to cancel a trip in January due to COVID, so I had the credit sitting in my Southwest Airlines account, and I had to use it or lose it. I had to travel by September of this year. So I went ahead last week and booked my trip to Maryland. And, I had these emails advertising these $49, $50 flights, but apparently those are for very specific times, and they weren't for September. They were more like, June and July and few in August. So I wasn't able to cash in on those. I got decent fares, I would say. It wasn't as good as what I thought, but I kind of was under the crunch to use it or lose it for my credit. So I just had to go ahead and book it. I was a little disappointed, but I had to do what I had to do.
Okay, we already have a question from the audience. How do you feel about paying more or not discounted prices to help local and communities as well as domestic businesses and restaurant and hospitality industry when traveling? So if you have the sense that it's helping a local community, does that make a difference? Yes, Julie.
Yes, I agree. That's kind of why I do want to try to go out, is try to help spreading some of the money to help out the economies. I'm starting local. Actually, in 3 weeks, I'm going to Westport, Washington to stay in some cabins, but still go out to some restaurants, but still have that glamping. Yeah, I'm not really looking for discounts or sales. I'm just looking to be able to get back out and support my favorite shops where I like to visit. So,
Stern, how about you? Does the message of that it's helping the local community, does that sway you in any way for it not being discounted?
I think I just disagree with that, so it doesn't sway me. I think that supporting my local community is something that I can do while minimizing the risk that is still present. And so I wouldn't travel as a way of trying to help the community. Also, like if we're talking about the actual travel prices, the fares that we want to see discounted, I don't think that that's helping a community. I think Charlie mentioned the inflation that we're seeing when we go out to eat. And that is something that I would like suck up, because I know I'm still supporting a local business.
Okay. Anyone have anything they want to add? Yes, Charlie.
Yeah, I would say in that same token, it depends, right? Like if I'm traveling to an area and it's some small mom and pop business that, are doing some dumplings or something that they've been doing for 30 years and they've been struggling, love to support that type of thing. But if I see that position from some conglomerate or an airline or a hotel chain where I'm like, oh, these are the people that cashed in on all this money that was meant for these communities, yeah, no thanks. I'm not going to actually be bought into some marketing scheme so that you can get more money that, so it's a fine balance. I love supporting local communities, especially those that have been hit hard, but I'm also not going to get fooled by some company just trying to make money off of the sentiment of the travelers, because a lot of companies are trying to do that. Oh, it's Earth Day. Yeah, we really care about the environment for 24 hours. Come on, that type of stuff. So as long as it's not trying to manipulate people to really divert funds to people who already have lined their pocket, then I love those type of messages. But if it's something where it's trying to manipulate me, I'm like, no, thank you.
All right. Well, you got a thumbs up from Rosetta in our audience, Charlie. So let me move on to why you're all here, which is that you've all been vaccinated. And I want to personally thank you for keeping your community safe by doing that. And I want to know how that impacts how you feel about travel and what's changed and what you feel has stayed the same. So Marcia, let's start with you.
Okay, I definitely feel much safer, having been vaccinated. I think I've got my second vaccination at the end of February. So upon getting that, I immediately made plans to we made a little road trip within Texas just a couple of weeks ago. And it was really nice to get back out there and this is a place that we go to normally a couple times a year. So it was nice to see that, the local places had survived, because I was afraid that a lot of them, wouldn't survive after last year. Basically, these are little mom and pop places. So it was nice to get out there and support those places. I felt safer, although we wore a mask everywhere, and I still took my Lysol wipes, and used them in the hotel room and all that stuff. But it did give me a much better level of, I guess, a little bit of security, a little more safety.
Yeah.
Getting out there.
Marcia, someone in the audience said not 30 seconds after you mentioned the cheap Southwest fares, they got an email from Southwest.
That's funny.
Advertising a $50 fare.
Right. Good luck with that.
Okay. Eric, how has being vaccinated changed travel for you, and what things have stayed the same and what things have changed?
It definitely opened it up a little bit more in being able to travel. One thing that I was worried about it was being able to give it to someone else if I were to get it. At least this way, like if I were to get it, it's I feel like I feel more comfortable thinking that the people around me will have a less of a chance from getting it from me. And that was always my fear when it came down to travel and doing whatever I needed to do, was being able to just worrying about the people around me as opposed to really myself.
Okay, thank you. All right, Julie, how about you?
It just helped with the confidence. It made me makes me feel a little bit stronger. But at the same time, all my family is vaccinated, so we all are much more comfortable going out together. But it just makes me feel a little more confident that we're all starting to get there, but we're not there yet.
Okay, and then I noticed, Julie, that you look like you're back, and speaking of the way things are the same, it looks like you're going back to the types of travel that you liked to do before.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Charlie, how about you?
Yeah, it's been tough for me because it's trying to balance that. How do I be a responsible citizen for others? Because I'm less concerned about myself. I don't really think I fall into that, worrisome demographic. And so I'm trying to think like, for people like my grandfather, people like others, how do I go to an area and make sure that I'm behaving in a way that's going to minimize the amount of risk that others experience? So getting that vaccination is just an additional layer of that for me. So I feel like it was the first time that I actually felt confident to go and buy an airplane ticket. And yeah, I'm going to bring masks and do everything that's responsible. But before I got that, I really didn't think it was responsible to buy any tickets anywhere. So that was kind of like my, gateway to start traveling again. Still haven't taken any yet, but that was how I felt about it, at least.
Okay. Santa, how are you feeling?
I felt very privileged to get the vaccine. And when I was thinking about that, I had a very similar thought process as Charlie did. And I feel as though I feel some personal comfort. I'm always weighing the risk of what's happening in the community around me. In particular, I think that the vaccine rollout came at a time where these very aggressive variants around the country have been popping up. And that has been something that's given me some caution when I really think about international travel, especially because it would be horrible to bring a strain like that to a different country. But the amount of personal security that I've been able to get from being vaccinated has allowed me to go outside and see my friends more, and plan some more local trips with people who I also know are vaccinated. So that's been good.
And on that, are you limiting, or like when you're going out or going on trips, are you staying with people who are also vaccinated? Like, is that part of your decision making? Okay. Okay, and actually, so you have an international trip coming up, and unless I'm mistaken, I think Cern is the only one of all of you. So can you tell us how you decided to make that decision and why you chose Jamaica?
There's really not much to say there. That trip was a gift, actually. I'll be starting medical school later this year, and it's something that a lot of people do before they go into medical school, is just go travel, because it's seen as like one of the last free summers you'll have. So I actually had, yeah, exactly. So I had a friend, or actually a close family friend, who bought that trip for me. She chose the location. I'm really ecstatic about it because it is like, I've been wanting to go somewhere sunny. I live in Boston, it's been very foggy. And just being somewhere very far away is very appealing.
Well, congratulations on medical school, and thank you for serving the healthcare industry. We certainly need
Very
people like
serious.
you. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's talk about travel this summer. And like Serna just did, if you can share how you ended up choosing where you're going to go this summer. Marcia, what sort of decisions, or how are you making those decisions on where you're going to go?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, had to cancel a January trip to visit my sister in Maryland. So we picked that back up for September. We love going up to the Northeast, that part of the country. So we wanted to reschedule that as soon as we could. So that was the main interest to get that one scheduled. Don't know if we're through scheduling for the rest of the year yet. We did have to cancel our Colorado road trip last year due to the virus. So I'm not sure we're going to make it there this year, but we still might. Just haven't decided on that for sure yet. But definitely wanted to visit the Northeast and visit Maryland.
So Marcia, you're touching on something that we in the travel industry also wondering about, which are these shorter booking windows that we're seeing people have. Do you feel like you have a shorter booking or decision timeline right now?
Yeah, for the Maryland trip, definitely, because as I said, I had my canceled trip from January that I had to use those funds. It was kind of like a use it or lose it deal. So that one I had to go ahead and get booked, or else I might have put it off maybe until after the first of the year, you know, and maybe done the Colorado trip instead of Maryland, but we wanted to go ahead and get our flight booked so we didn't lose that airfare. So I was kind of surprised that Southwest didn't extend, you know, the time limit for me to use that credit, since I did have to cancel due to COVID. You know, it didn't seem like they gave me very long to use that credit. It seems like there, you know, it was extenuating circumstances, but I had till September to you know, I thought maybe it was September to book it, but no, it was till September to fly. So I had to go ahead and make that decision. I didn't want to lose that money.
And on the Colorado trip, like what's going to make you finally decide that you're going to do it? Like what do you need to?
I guess just, I guess when we get back from Maryland, you know, just, I don't want to get into the big ski season because we're not going to ski. We just kind of like to go to enjoy the scenery and to kick back and relax and shop, you know. So we'd have to complete our travel probably by mid-October before too much snow starts hitting. So it's kind of just a timing deal, you know, for us.
Right. Eric, how about you? What's going into your decision factors about travel coming up?
The big decisions were really just family and friends and being able to see them. It's been almost 2 years, you can say, since you've had a chance to openly see your friends and family without having to worry about something. But that was the biggest one for me, is just being able to get back with my friends and the family that I have all across the nation.
And are you all making decisions together about trips that you're going to take together, or are you just coming to see each other?
They all live in those areas, so I'm making the trip. So I'm getting with them to make sure to arrange whatever it's needed, whether I am getting my own hotel, whether I'm staying with them, you know, what they feel comfortable with, and just so on and so forth.
Okay. Let's see. Serna, anything that you want to add about, I know you were gifted the Jamaica trip, but anything about, like, I think it was Nashville that you were going to? Like, how are you making decisions on where you're going to travel in the near term?
I think I was also prioritizing which friends and family I thought it was reasonable for me to try and see. And also I did prioritize people who were also vaccinated. And secondary to that, I was thinking about, okay, what places could I go to where there's a reasonable amount of things to do outdoors, where I don't have to rely only on something like indoor dining or going out to a club or something like that. So like a city or even a place like Jamaica, were places where I could do a lot of that.
Okay, so and yeah, and I'm curious on that issue too. Are any of you also balancing the indoor outdoor activities in your decision making?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so not yet, Julie. We need to hear from you too about your. You share on that.
Yeah, so in about 3 weeks, I'm going to Westport, Washington, which is a fishing town. We're renting, they have these little camping cabins, so it's glamping. So we're gonna be making a lot of our own meals, but then we'll also go to the restaurants and bring some back. The restaurants there all have outdoor eating. We're not gonna be eating inside. So it's gonna be a lot of, we're getting 2 cabins, me and my niece in one and my parents in the other. So we're gonna have this outdoor experience. They have not gone anywhere since the beginning of this. So this is more of helping them to get out and get a little bit more comfortable. And then in October, I'm planning on doing the New Orleans. The room is already booked and paid for, but it's also fully refundable. I am not looking at airfare yet because I need to see what happens this summer. I'm still holding on to my airline credit from my flight that got canceled last May.
Oh, wow.
That expires this December when it first all hit. So I'm really leery on the airlines right now. So I'm kind of holding off on that. But when we're in New Orleans, we're doing the airboat tour, so we'll be outside. We're getting the small boat, so there's not a lot of people. Everything we're doing is based kind of on not a lot of people, except for Halloween. Then we'll be masked up, and so it should be okay.
That's interesting, Julie. Now, is your concern because of the number of unvaccinated people that you may be around?
Especially in New Orleans. Because there's going to be that'll be the most people I have been around in 2 years. So that's going to be a little weird. In Westport, no, I'm not really worried. It should be fine. There's not a lot of people. We're going during the week, so there's not going to be the weekend people there. But yeah, New Orleans, that one, it's all depending on what happens this summer and how well the virus does and doesn't do. So.
Julie, am I understanding that you are easing? It sounds like you're kind of easing your way into crowds with the travel youth.
I am easing my way into crowds.
Okay. All right. Charlie, how about you? How are you making decisions about your travel coming up?
Yeah, very similarly. Like instead of flying out, I've been driving. So we were like, hey, let's make a big road trip out of it. And it's less so about, like I said, fear of me getting it, but I'm also kind of an intense person, and I am flabbergasted by some of the just completely abysmal behavior of human beings I've observed over the last little bit. So like when I've been on an airplane and I see somebody yelling at a stewardess just trying to do his or her job, it's just it's infuriating to me. And so I find myself in this: do I be a weird citizen that yells at this other random citizen, or do I just sit here and shut my mouth and let them berate this wonderful employee? So it's like I don't like being in those situations. So like, hey, I'll remove and just drive, and then hopefully not spread this either. So definitely been prioritizing outdoors, national parks, seeing friends and family that I haven't been able to see. I have a nephew I barely know because he was born in March, right when this started. So I'm looking forward to driving out to California, spending time near Joshua Tree and getting to know my nephew, hopefully helping out with my sister there. And then going out east and visiting some friends just to be able to see some different scenery, get near the water. It's one of the things Colorado lacks. And so trying to go spend some time out there as well, but definitely echoing the sentiments of everybody else here, where it's like, hey, how do I avoid crazy, get back to serenity, try to be safe, be a good citizen, but at the same time, like realize that we're not quite out of this yet. And yeah, we all have this like built up desire to go out and get back to our normal lives, but we have to do it in a way that's intelligent, in my opinion. So.
Okay, perfect. Because on that, I know a big question that our audience has or is grappling with is in the advertising that they put out to all of you, how do they weigh the pandemic into what they show you? So we are constantly at Destination Analyst getting asked to help people understand, like, does everyone have to be masked? Is it in the ad or is it only in certain situations? Would anyone like to share any thoughts? Maybe there's an ad that you've seen recently that's got it right, or maybe one that's gotten it wrong. Serna, do you have any thoughts on how to weigh the pandemic in advertising?
I will say I'm trying so hard to think of some ads and it's just like not coming. but I usually when I see the pandemic featured in ads, I just feel like it's not done in a way that really gets me, that's very relatable. It's rare for that to happen. So I think usually I see it as like kind of cheap marketing, and it doesn't sway me very much.
Is that because it feels disingenuous, or
Yeah,
it just
it feels disingenuous because I know that they have a motive. And when they acknowledge the pandemic, oftentimes I feel like what should be acknowledged is maybe the pain, the hardship, and like the fact that we have to come through this together as a community. And oftentimes that's not what advertisers are trying to do.
okay? Julie, have you seen any ads that have done it well, or what are your thoughts on how you want to see the pandemic
I really
in
haven't seen anything except for because I know I'm traveling the familiar, so I'm going where I know. But I haven't really seen anything except for the hotel saying, that they're cleaning and sterilizing. But I haven't really seen anything that was catching my eye, going, "Ooh, they're really being safe. I need to go there." I haven't seen anything like that.
Okay. Eric, what do you think? What do you think about masks and ads, and what do you want to see in advertising too?
That's something that I haven't really paid attention to, where the advertisements that I was getting sent for travel or anything like that, or in general. I typically unsubscribe from them so it doesn't clutter my inbox. I haven't really seen anything personally.
Marcia, any thoughts on what you want to see in terms of travel advertising, like how people weigh the pandemic protocols and that?
Yeah, I haven't really seen any ads that I can think of either. I personally would want to see ads where people are wearing masks and maybe trying to social distance. But I also understand, I guess, that varies by state, what the requirements are or whatever. And then you've always got these pockets of people, the anti-maskers, the anti-vaxxers. I guess the marketers are trying like not to alienate those people. So I don't know how they're trying to dance around all these pockets of, the population, trying to reach out and connect to all of them. So, but personally, I don't recall having seen any ads about travel that has really shown any masking or really addressed it, to be honest.
Yeah, and you summed that up pretty well, dancing around a lot of different feelings and opinions. Charlie, anything to share on this?
Sure. I feel like that's really starting to dig into the real difficulty for any marketers right now, because the skepticism from your audiences is at an all-time high. And so regardless of what type of agenda you're trying to push forward, you're going to amplify the skepticism. The people who are very much trying to be responsible are going to say, look, they're not doing enough to really address it. We're not out of the woods. And the people on the other side are going to be like, oh, they're catering to these sheep that are afraid of getting a microchip in their body or whatever the hell they're saying these days. So it's difficult for you guys, but I think the best thing to do is that real communication of that. We're all trying to just see our friends and family and get through this together. So if you actually have a tone that's not trying to manipulate people so that you can make some money, but rather highlighting the beauties of your area or whatever it is that you believe is the most authentically true to you for that area. I think that's going to resonate a little bit more with us, because we're going to see through the BS. We've just been fed it so much over the last couple of years that we're really going to have a negative association with something that we find manipulative, whereas something that's a little bit more authentic, I think, resonates with us right now. I don't know, but that's just a thought.
Thank you, Charlie. And we're getting thanks to, Julie, did you want to add something before we wrap up?
Yeah, I saw the comment over by Teresa. And I was gonna say, the staycation, that's all I have been doing. Like, so that's like my Westport, because it is a small community and they're always hit hard, especially because all they have is the tourists that come in to go fishing. So I'm all for the staycations, and like going up to Leavenworth, Washington. It's again very small communities, all about tourism. So yeah, we've been trying to get out to them as much as we can.
Okay, well, I'm sure they appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate all of you being on this morning. I have to let you go because we're right at time. You've provided us so much help this morning, so really thank you. And I wish you very, very happy and safe travels this summer and into the future. Take care, everyone. And for the rest of our audience, we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.